How to cope in a world going crazy. If you enjoy the work and you want to support it, head on over to Patreon. I have a Substack also that I do writing on. I have Mixcloud where I make the mixes and post them if you really enjoy the breathwork stuff. If you want to go deeper into that, I occasionally post on Instagram. And then I have perceptionarchitecture.com, which is a site where you can keep up to date on all of the upcoming live events, trainings, and things like that. I got asked this recently, are you feeling dysregulated or are you feeling out of sorts because of the media that you're consuming? Or is it like a broader sense of there's something like pushing up through my old paradigms, trying to break open a part of my mind and create a new structure in there? My answer was that I'm actually watching the media. I'm watching the way that things are being reported, and it's very much rooted in this domination dynamic, this judgment paradigm, diagnosis culture, which is very much about what is the thing that is happening, what is the thing. And you have lots of people making these different ideas and concepts, which are essentially like little boxes to try to organize the movement of the things that are happening, and then engaging in this war for supremacy of like whose narrative is correct. So there's a Hegelian principle of thesis and antithesis, and then together synthesis, which creates this kind of larger dynamic. I found this concept interesting, and I think this is my interpretation of it. But it's kind of like the yin yang. You have one side, then you have the other side, and then the broader perspective is the synthesis of these two things. But we get very much caught up in our idea of what's happening is from a what's right perspective. Who's right, who's in the right, who's in the wrong, because we're trying to organize it up here, trying to organize it up in the mind, and it's not sufficient for what's currently happening right now, because people can feel it, sensitive people can feel it, but regular people can feel it. There's a whole shifting tectonic movement happening, and it's almost like it's moving up through the bodies of people and acting itself out through their pre-existing paradigms. But the movement wants to break these paradigms. Like the movement wants to it's coming from the ground, from the body, wanting to break these paradigms open so that we can think about things in a completely different way. But we're using the old paradigm, the judgment, diagnosis, domination, culture paradigm, to try to understand and organize this energy movement into a psychology. And that, I don't feel like that's going to work. Like I feel like these paradigms are breaking open because we can't think about the world in the way that we've been used to thinking about it. Watching these current events, like you can see the pain and the anguish and the way this hurt is like rising up from people. And the whole Trump Zelensky thing where they're starting to get into an argument, and they both have their point of view and their perspective, and like this is extremely polarizing. I watch these discourses online and I just see like half of them think that Trump is the best thing ever, and half of them think that Trump is the worst thing ever, and half of them think that Zelensky's in the right, and half of them think that he's a shill and a grifter and all of that. And it's like, okay, this kind of binary analysis and evaluation of a situation is never going to be reflective of reality. You can't get a whole picture of what's going on. You're filtering it not just through the events that are happening, but you're filtering it through the backstory, your history, your hidden values, your hidden agendas, your unconscious biases, all of these things. And I saw this amazing AI video. I forget the name of the creator, but it was, I'll try and post it here, but it was this video of Trump and Zelensky having this argument.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad.
And you would think that this is the way to try to comprehend something with that level of depth, with that level of nuance, with that level of clarity. It's like you have to broaden your peripheral vision to take in as much as possible. But that's really, really difficult when you're in pain, because when you're in pain, your vision narrows, it actually narrows, and you start to focus on the threats. And it's like you're looking at the world through this tube and you're only getting a tiny bit of the picture. And it's like there's so much that we just can't know what's going on. It's like we don't know. We only know what we think we know, but we're almost approaching it in the way of coming at it from a diagnosis perspective, which is losing its efficacy in this kind of time, because we need to start to consider things in a different way and let something unfold from within us that is different to the way that we've been thinking, because the structures are not going to hold the movement that is coming up at the moment. So I'm really not trying to see this through a place of judgment, who's right and who's wrong. Like, everybody has a perspective and an opinion, and everyone has a backstory through which all of that will be filtered through. It's not about that. The aggregate of all of these opinions together is going to create this whole picture. So to do this is actually really difficult, to come at it from this place of, actually, I'm not going to try to use my old paradigm to structure the movements or the experience that's being had in my body, because the experience is the energy movement trying to break through the old paradigm, the old set of judgments and beliefs and ideas, to expand consciousness. And often within that energy movement that is coming from the body, if you can really descend down into it and experience it fully, comes a completely new paradigm, new psychology, new awareness. It's like it's within. It's almost like you have this seed within you that feels like pain because there's pressure and tension. It's kind of bursting, and it wants to break through your psychological structures that are your judgments and beliefs about the world. And when you kind of drop into that and just allow it to unfold and allow it to break through, there is a new structure that it will give birth to in your psychology. And this is the whole thesis behind somatic experiencing and things like that, these body-based techniques, is to be able to experience what's happening in the body whilst feeling okay to do so, but with complete presence, like with a way to be able to not rush into these magnetic judgments and paradigms and things like that are the old system trying to reassert its grip on reality, when actually the movement from the body and from nature is to want to evolve and change the system. So we want to go with that evolution and changing of the system as much as we can. So how do you cope in a world that is going crazy, where old paradigms are breaking down and people are engaged in this kind of surface level domination struggle of who's right? Because all that really is a lot of people saying, I'm in pain, I have needs, I don't know what those needs are, but I need to control, like I need to clamp down on here because I don't feel safe. Right? So we need to be able to learn to feel safe, feeling the discomfort within the body. Some people are in really, really dire circumstances, and this is where it becomes all the more difficult to have your experience in deep pain. We can't really understand until we descend down into the body, into the experiences that we're having, without categorizing them and without labeling them. Or if the mind is doing that, watching the mind doing that without engaging or believing in what it's trying to say. So what do you do where things are moving so fast and so rapidly in a way that feels almost unmanageable? Well, I remember going through a really difficult breakup one year, and I remember this little voice inside of me, just as it happened, said that this is really going to hurt. It's like this intuition that just rose up from here. And the instruction from that was, you need to juice fast. You need to like go on a juice cleanse. And that's exactly what I did. I did like 10 days of just drinking juices. And I could feel, I've done plenty of stuff like this before, but I could feel it's almost like the space around me started to expand as I was doing it. You know, day one sucks a little bit. It's like, oh, I really love to eat that biscuit or whatever. But as you kind of descend down, then your energy level starts to rise. And there are some more humps to go through, but generally you feel this kind of expansiveness of energy. And what that was my system telling me that I needed more space to process these emotional fluctuations, because as I create more space in my perception, my awareness, as I start to raise my energy level by not having the energy taken up with digestion of heavy foods, that allowed me to then process emotions in a way that just felt lighter and more fluid. And then I would have these experiences where it's like, okay, now you need to have a gin and tonic and a tikka masala or something like that. And as I absorbed like the density of that food, that's when I started to feel this huge heart-opening experience of like, oh, the sadness and the pain, like how it felt, like the depth of that. And it was a really strange experience to have this contrast of going into like a lot of Ashtanga yoga, a lot of meditation, and juice fasting, and I felt like I only really needed to sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night, and I had so much creative energy, but I was just processing these emotions, but I wasn't so connected as much to the heart. So that's when I ate the denser foods, is when I had these kind of more heart opening experiences. And so, you know, the big thing from that for me was, okay, you need to raise your energy level to be able to process these emotions. Go into these things like fasts, juice cleanses, fast, like whatever, or eating fruit or things that are not heavy in the digestion, so you free up energy to be able to get clarity and focus. Like one of the things that happens when you fast is that your thoughts become very clear. Like you start to be able to separate what's important from what's not, and you start to be able to get direction from that, because your body's essentially entering this place of like, okay, I need to be super hyper aware of everything around me now because I'm kind of looking for food. But it does allow you to extract information from the body and have messages come up from the body that might have been obscured by old loops and patterns and systems of doing things in the mind that are like needing to be reconfigured. So that would be the first thing. Okay, so the second thing that I do, and I do this often when I get stuck in these mental loops, and you can tell that you're in the brain when you're narrativizing your experience. You're not actually just having the experience. So everything that I do on this channel is about dropping into that experience and then allowing, like kind of guiding you down to be able to feel what you're feeling safely so it can evolve and change within you into something new. The second thing that's good to be aware of is that when you're thinking, the chances are that you're not breathing as coherently or as connectedly as you could. One of the ways to interrupt what's called the default mode network, which is this little circuit of parts of the brain, like electricity running between these parts of the brain, that is narrativizing and storytelling about your experience, which is how you know that you're not actually just having your experience in this kind of unknown and exploratory way. So one of the quickest ways to get out of the default mode network is to increase the strength of the breath. So we can do this now. Notice what you're thinking before we do this breathing exercise. So just pay attention to your thoughts right now in this moment. And we're going to take 7 strong breaths in. It's like the kind of Wim Hof technique, but it's basically big full lung inhale, slower tapered exhale, big full lung inhale, slower tapered exhale. So you would do that now. If you want to find a nice comfortable position, make sure you're not driving while you do it. It's definitely not a good idea. But make sure that you are in a nice, relaxed and safe place to do it. And maybe hand on the belly, hand on the chest, or hands on your knees. And we're going to take these big inhales like this. And then slowly exhale. Like that. We'll do it 6 more times. Okay, relax, exhale and hold. Just notice how that changes the texture of your mental, psychological and physical experience. I'm going to take a big long inhale at the end. Hold the breath. Relax and let go. Even just 5 to 10 breaths of something like that can interrupt this continuous stream of narrative storylines that you're having about your experience. And you can actually start to harvest the insight that arises from the space just after, when you do the retentions, when you hold the breath on the exhale, when you hold the breath on the inhale. Just notice the difference in the quality of your thinking. And then if you like that, you do another 10, or you do another 10, or you do another 10. And you can just keep allowing those interruptions of those thought loops to start to give you an opening to be able to notice what's actually really genuinely important. And that will help give you a little bit of direction about what is needed and what you should do next. So the third thing, and this is what I do generally with people when I'm working with them, but we do a mixture of all of these things, is the somatics and the tapping exercises. So EFT tapping, I find really, really useful for slowing down and completing thought loops. If you're looping around in your brain, and you know what it's like when you have this kind of ambiguous thought loop and it's going, and it's like, it's still in here, like it's still like this cloud because it hasn't really been given the definition that it needs to be given. You haven't vocalized and voiced your fears and externalized them so that then they're not like taking up space and energy in your mind. So basically we go around the tapping points. You'll see this on all of the other videos more or less on the channel. So we just go through the tapping points and you just start to let yourself access a kind of stream of consciousness. Allow that stream of consciousness to come out. So just saying the words as they're arising up from the body. So feeling really annoyed, feeling really scared, noticing I'm feeling that in my chest, noticing I'm having this judgment about this particular person, noticing these storylines are really compelling, feeling all this survival stress energy in the body, really having a difficult time of it. And just allowing myself to notice that. And also noticing any judgments that might be there about that. And letting myself have that experience. The yawns will probably start to come, but you're really just trying to bring it to the ground, because whenever you're up here, you talk about not being grounded. It's like, yeah, that's what being in your head is. It's not being grounded because you're not actually in reality. You're in concept land. You're in concepts about reality, the map of reality, rather than boots on the ground. What am I experiencing? What is my body telling me about the direction, the things that are needed, and like where I need to go? This is really, really important, just to be able to slow down and complete those thoughts. So then once they're out there, they've been vocalized, they've been sounded out, often the system then can just come down and relax. We use somatics with this as well. So that would be one of the very, very first things that you can do if you notice yourself in a thought loop. It's like, okay, notice it and then just start to move your eyes around. We call it like chasing the invisible fly. As you start to move your eyes around a little bit, it's like that automatically interrupts the loop because your eyes will access different parts of your brain as you move them around. So you're kind of interrupting something with a very small movement. And then you can start to move your body in a slightly different way. And as you start to move your body in a slightly different way, like I often get people to shake their hips a little bit, which is fun. But that's because you have this muscle, the psoas muscle, that's governing the fear reflex, that is instructing your brain that you are stressed and you should feel afraid. And then your brain says, well, why am I afraid? And then it looks for a place to put that. It looks for a reason. Yes, because this is happening, because this is happening, because this is happening. Then you're literally just reinforcing your state, which is not what you want, because that's not the way out and through. You actually want to descend into it from a completely phenomenological and experiential perspective and allow it to unfold through you and deliver you into this, you say like a new psychological shift or paradigm or a new awareness, something like that. those would be the top three to do those. The fourth could be a mixture of things. Like I use meditation a lot, exercise a lot. All of these things are just to keep yourself below the mind, keep yourself close to the ground, keep yourself below the thought structures that are stringing your nervous system along and draining your energy and draining your resources, when actually right now, okay, put my hands on the table, I'll touch the things around me just to make sure that, okay, reality in my present moment, no matter what is about to happen, right here, right now, things are potentially refreshingly mundane. Not for everybody in the world. But if you're in a situation where you need to gather your resources, and I really feel like this is the most important work people can do, because it's like, if somebody comes to you from a place of less resources, you're going to have then resources to give to them. You're going to have resources to be able to help them, because you've managed your own state. You've managed your mind. You've not become a slave to the judgments and the domination thinking and the diagnoses. You're not looking for that. You're not looking for a box to put it in. You're actually just having your experience and allowing it to unfold into something completely new, which is connecting you to this flow of energy, which is giving you the resources that you need all the time. So obviously being connected to others as well, assuming that you can have dialogues that are deeper than surface level, who's right, you're right, I'm wrong, no, I'm right, no, we're right, they're wrong, all of this kind of thing. That really just keeps things at the surface. And it's like, that's what is strangling us at the moment. It's that old paradigm and the insistence on there is rightness and wrongness and moralizing and judgments and all of this. It's like, there is things happening right now that need us to be in our energy. The world is really looking like it's going very, very crazy from the mind perspective right now, which is why you need to stay very close to the ground and just let these movements happen through the body, and a new awareness will come through, which will direct you to where you need to go and what you need to do, which is not necessarily always going to be comfortable, but it will be real. Like, it'll be much more real than being up here in this kind of avoidance, thinking about what's happening rather than actually feeling and experiencing it. I wanted to make this just as a quick add-on because I slept on it and thought I needed to add this extra thing in here. So this would be number 5. And this might be really obvious, but feed your mind. Language structures consciousness, and as you feed your mind with the same language that you've inloaded from the days before, you're going to get the same structures that come out. You're going to get the same output. So feeding your mind with new information, with new insights based on the content of this video, I would advise to do it in things that are not necessarily concerned with morality, because morality is very easy to put you into a right, wrong, black, white, good, bad definition. It's more about things that take a bit of an objective view on things that can help you see things with a bit more clarity and in a less emotionally charged way. Because when we're in a time like this, there are going to be a lot of emotional triggers, like undoubtedly. So being able to structure things in a clear and objective way while you're feeling this emotion, that's different to suppressing the emotion. Like, people sometimes hear this and they think, so I'm just suppressing my emotion. It's like, no, you're feeling your emotion, but you need a solid structure and container to feel safe when you're in that emotional chaos. So the emotional chaos doesn't storyline itself. It's like, you need that structure in the part where it's chaos to balance. And then when it's too balanced and too ordered, maybe you need a bit of chaos, a bit of spontaneity to come through and offer some new life, some new energy. Maybe subtly different, but you're not looking to suppress what you're feeling. Actually, you're looking to experience what you're feeling, holding a solid container of, okay, there are frameworks from this that I've inloaded psychologically that I can now use to explore this in a way where I'm not feeling stuck in this moralistic paradigm of I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong, or something like that. So feeding your mind is really, really important, and then letting that information settle through things like meditation, stuff like that, is able to allow it to synthesize in the body and like keep you generative. Because we become what we focus on. So focusing on things that are going to be yielding the same emotional results again and again and again, it comes from this focus, which then turns into a state, which then eventually becomes a trait. I'll credit this to Mark Walsh, who talks about this. And then eventually the step beyond that is becomes an identity, it becomes an embodiment. It's like the things that you habitually practice, the states you habitually practice, become who you are. They become your identity, your embodiment. It creates shape. So you can think about it in this way, that state practiced over time creates shape, shapes your body, shapes your face, shapes everything. And that can start with the story that you're telling yourself about what's happening. So being able to feed your mind so your story is generative. It's not just a passive inloading of, if I focus on things that are getting me emotionally charged all of the time, and I'm feeling that emotion, and then I'm calcifying my identity around that emotional charge, and I'm structuring my identity around my relationship with that emotional charge, with that, my body feeling, and building my identity linguistically, like the concept of myself. And that can be really, really painful over the long term, because your identity is something much deeper than that. Your identity, if it's rooted in your self-concept, is not going to be fulfilling over the long term. You're so much deeper than that. You have to kind of discover that by descending into it. Your identity is something that evolves and moves and changes. Who you are beneath all of your stories about yourself is something much more potent and much more powerful. So feeding your mind is really, really important. If you feed it garbage, clickbait, whatever it is, that's kind of how you're going to feel. It's like food. Food is information, but information is also food. What you feed your mind, what you feed your body is going to give you input, output kind of relationship dynamics. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was useful. It just gives you a couple of little things that you can do to take away. And I'm doing groups at the moment on Fridays. I'm not quite sure how long I'm going to keep doing them, but I think more YouTube lives where people can log on, and then we can work through some of these stresses. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.